It's Thursday, April 9th, 2026. Is it really a ceasefire if nobody stops firing? Incompetent to stand trial? And a new acronym. Next on the AM Update. Well, we are officially a day into the ceasefire between the United States and Iran. A huge sticking point. This 10-point list that Iran has supposedly given to the United States. There's like 3,000 to 5,000 different variants going around. We'll get into that in a little bit. Leading, it seems right now, the negotiations between the West and Iran seems to be Vice President J.D. Vance, who made these comments the other day regarding the president of Iran's parliament saying that Iran still has the right to enrich uranium.
The second thing Ghalibaf said, which again I found fascinating, is he said, "We refuse to give up the right to enrichment." And I thought to myself, you know what? My wife has the right to skydive, but she doesn't jump out of an airplane because she and I have an agreement that she's not going to do that because I don't want my wife jumping out of an airplane. We don't really concern ourselves with what they claim they have the right to do. We concern ourselves with what they actually do. And I think the president's been very clear on the enrichment question. So the second thing,
So there's that. The president, as you heard J.D. Vance say there, as well as J.D. Vance himself and the West, very adamant Iran will not have enriched, at least not weapons-grade uranium. President Trump also saying this about those lists that Iran has been putting out, quote, "Numerous agreements, lists, letters are being sent out by people that have nothing to do with the USA-Iran negotiation. In many cases, they are fraudsters, charlatans, and worse. They will be rapidly exposed after our federal investigation is complete. There is only one group of meaningful points that are acceptable to the United States, and we will be discussing them behind closed doors during these negotiations." Vice President Vance again discussing all of these lists. This was kind of, I think, the topic of the CNN headline that President Trump was very upset about on Tuesday evening, where they basically said Iran is claiming victory. They, agreed to these 10 points. Well, there's like 3 different versions of these 10 points that Iran supposedly has produced. Vice President Vance has had enough of it.
So let me just say, given that you guys are going to ask about Iran, let me just say a few things, actually. So, number one, I think it's very important for the American media to be honest with the American people on this particular issue, because it affects not just, the normal issues of public policy. It actually affects peace and war. And here's what I mean. So in the past couple of days, I've seen a lot of reporting from the American media about the 10-point proposal that the Iranians have made. Now, as I know, because I've been involved in this, there are 3 different 10-point proposals, at least, that I've seen floating around. The first 10-point proposal was something that was submitted, and we think, frankly, was probably written by ChatGPT, that was submitted to Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. That immediately went in the garbage and was rejected. There was a second 10-point proposal that was much more reasonable, that was based on some back and forth between us, between the Pakistanis and Iranians. That is the 10-point proposal that the president was referencing in his truth yesterday. And then, frankly, I've seen a third 10-point proposal that's even more maximalist than the first 10-point proposal that's been floating around various social media channels. Now, here's what's interesting about all this, is that I've seen various organs, the New York Times, CNN, others, pick up and run the original 10-point proposal based on little more than a random Yahoo in Iran submitting it to public access television in the country of Iran, and then them saying that somehow represents the negotiating position of the government.
So there's Vice President Vance, if I can just sum him up very quickly. The fog of war has been thick at times during Operation Epic Fury. It might be the thickest right now in the midst of this would-be ceasefire. Back at the Pentagon, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth made it clear in no uncertain terms just who came to the table in the better position for the ceasefire.
President Trump forged this moment. Iran begged for this ceasefire, and we all know it. As the President truth this morning, a big day for world peace. Iran wants it to happen. They've had enough. Operation Epic Fury was a historic and overwhelming victory on the battlefield. A capital V military victory. By any measure, Epic Fury decimated Iran's military and rendered it combat ineffective for years to come.
One of the seemingly growing list of sticking points seems to be what Israel is doing with Lebanon and Hezbollah in Lebanon. Apparently, Iran and their intermediaries in Pakistan were under the impression that Israel would stop attacking Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. According to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, whom you hear there speaking in Hebrew, quote, I insisted that Hezbollah isn't part of the temporary ceasefire, and we will continue to hit it. It just got the biggest hit since the beepers, 100 targets in 10 minutes. So if that truly is a major sticking point for Iran, who knows, by the end of this week, by the end of the weekend, we could be back in a full-blown war. But, like I said, the fog of war seems to be thickest right now. Back at home, a North Carolina woman has been charged with sharing classified defense information to a journalist following her work as a civilian operational support technician at Fort Bragg. It's the largest military installation by some estimates in the world. Courtney Williams worked in a special military unit from 2010 to 2016 and had top secret clearance with access to a significant amount of classified materials. Federal prosecutors alleged from 2022 to 2025, Williams shared classified information that the journalist used in reporting for an article and book on Fort Bragg. While court records do not name the journalist, a book, quote, The Fort Bragg Cartel, and magazine article from independent reporter Seth Harp last year profiles Williams and her allegations of harassment and abuse while employed at Fort Bragg. Now, the feds say that she was leaking classified materials. Also in North Carolina, the crazed homeless person accused of murdering in cold blood 23-year-old Irina Zarutska, well, he's been found unfit and incapable to stand trial on murder charges. According to a motion filed on April 7th, DeCarlos Brown Jr. was evaluated in late December at Central Regional Hospital, and the subsequent report determined he was not competent to stand trial. That's according to WBTV. His attorney has asked the court to delay his competency hearing by 180 days. The results were previously sealed in state court and were only revealed as the motion was filed. Prosecutors did not object to the requested 180-day delay of Brown's Rule 24 hearing, which was previously scheduled for April 30th, which will determine whether he is fit to proceed with a potential death penalty trial. It's one thing if this individual had never committed an act of violence before, this DeCarlos Brown, before his brutal stab in the throat of 23-year-old Ukrainian immigrant Irina Zarutska. It would be one thing if he didn't have a history, a lengthy history of violent crimes, but he did. And yet he was still out on the streets. If there's something that just tells you where we are right now, somewhere along the lines, or somewheres along the lines, and someone's along the lines, particularly the judges who let him back out on the streets, there's a lot of blame to go around. A hacker has allegedly stolen a massive trove of sensitive data, including highly classified defense documents and missile schematics from a state-run Chinese supercomputer in what could potentially constitute the largest known heist of data from China. The dataset, which allegedly contains more than 10 petabytes of sensitive information, is believed to have been obtained from the National Supercomputing Center in Tianjin, a centralized hub that provides infrastructure services for more than 6,000 clients across China, including advanced science computers and a number of other advanced applications. Cyber experts who have allegedly spoken to the alleged hacker and reviewed samples of the stolen data they posted online say they appeared to gain entry into the massive computer with comparative ease and were able to siphon out huge amounts of data over the course of multiple months without being detected. That is the first time in recent memory I can remember China experiencing a massive hack. Usually they're the ones doing the hacking. Now they know what it feels like. Told you about the disastrous approval rating for Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger in a relatively short amount of time. She was just elected back in November, wasn't it? It's April now. She was asked about that new polling data yesterday.
Ma'am, earlier this week, there was a poll-up that had your numbers a little unfavorable, and then your predecessor, Glenn, was making a podcast run earlier this week to taking a couple jabs at you. I guess overall, on your numbers, what do you attribute that to, and then what would you say back to Glenn?
I would say if everybody hated me, why is everybody putting my face on their mailers for the referendum?
So she's talking about the referendum on redistricting in Virginia. And it's true. Everybody's putting her face on the mailers for that referendum because she's previously been on the record opposing gerrymandering, which is exactly what she's trying to do right now. Not handling that super well. When we come back, it's going to be our poll of the week and introduction to a new acronym. It's coming up next. Well, this is a first. We go to Canada.
When the budget was released, I was shocked to find out that Prime Minister Carney is cutting $7 billion between Indigenous Services Canada and Crown Indigenous Relations. They provided $0 to deal with the ongoing genocide of MMIW G2S LGBTQIA+.
Okay. That is Minister of Parliament Leah Gazan of the New Democratic Party bemoaning the lack of a budget to deal with the, quote, ongoing genocide of, let me get this right, MMIW G2S LGBTQIA+. Never heard that before? But there's a first time for everything, including this poll of the week. I asked you, will the ceasefire hold? I posted this shortly after the announcement from President Trump of the ceasefire on Tuesday evening. Let's see what you had to say. I gave you a few options. Yes, no, partially, and the ability to comment. In last place is yes. 8.7% say yes, this ceasefire will hold. In second place, 21.7% say partially it'll hold, but eventually fall apart. And between that and the first place option, no, 69.6% say no, this is not going to hold. That's what, 90% saying it's not going to hold all the way. Let's go to what you have to say. Jay Breezy says, I trust discounted gas station sushi over the current rulers of Iran. Fair. I'll trust POS Thune to pass the SAVE Act over the rulers of Iran. More than fair. I'll trust Newsom's wife not to say something crazy for 24 hours over the current rulers of Iran. Very fair. Thanks, Jay Breezy. Derek says, I want to say yes and hope, but I fear that this ceasefire will last just long enough to allow the regime to stay in power, and we'll be right back here hearing about mass executions in the next couple months, if not weeks. Scott says, between America and Iran, yes. Israel and Iran, no. I think that's a possibility. It's a possibility that America could just say, hey, you need to you got to deal with Israel separately. You know, as far as we're concerned, we're done here, but you're going to have to deal with Israel. If you want peace with them, you got to make it with them. Kurt North says, no, the ceasefire will not hold. They want us dead. They've been shouting it out loud since 1979. If this regime survives, we can't call this a win. Yeah, I don't think the Venezuela thing is going on here. I don't know. I'd like to be wrong, and I think we all need to give it a little bit more time. But it certainly does not seem like the Venezuela option is even possible right now, where you just find just brazenly corrupt leaders who are just brazen and shameless enough that they don't really care about their old leader. As long as you give them power, they're going to play ball with you, do what you want, as long as you keep them in power. That's kind of what's going on in Venezuela. Tom says, I pray so. Gary says, I'm confused. So now instead of free passage, we need to pay a toll. Doesn't sound like a win. Also, there are hundreds of types of oil out there, and each has a specific place it has to go to be refined. This is why taking Venezuela oil did nothing for us. We can't refine it. I'm not sure about that. From what I've researched, a lot of our Gulf refineries, I thought, were set up to refine that sour crude from Venezuela. I could be mistaken. But you are right that not all crude oil is pumped the same. Not all crude oil has the same properties across the globe. And so, yes, that is a problem. Now, as far as the toll, there have been contradictory reports. And I think this is kind of what was pissing off Vice President J.D. Vance as well, with these 10 points that Iran has been bandying about. There's like 3 versions of them. One of them, I think that I saw, one of them says, yeah, we're gonna keep, tolling boats, tankers that come through the Strait of Hormuz But then there was another one that I saw as well saying, okay, we'll open the Strait of Hormuz straight away. Just don't attack us. So, who knows? Again, the fog is very thick. That's going to do it for a Thursday. I'm out tomorrow. I've, like a lot of people have from time to time, like 25 irons in the fire this week, and I just need some extra time to get those all done. Appreciate you listening this week. Back at it again on Monday.